and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 431, and today's date is August 2nd, 2014, and the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief for this Saturday. Before I get started, I just want to thank those people who donated to the X22Report.com site. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it, and I'm very, very grateful. Thank you. Now, I had someone write into me. I don't want to mention his name. I don't want to get him in trouble, but we're talking about the economy here, and I really want to thank this person for writing in. He works in the Lowe's distribution center, and he's saying that during this time that they are paid overtime to keep up with the demand. All the construction going on, people planting bushes and trees, and people remodeling. He said, but this year, over the last 6 weeks or so, there has been no overtime whatsoever. Actually, they're telling them to punch out earlier. So we can see right now the real estate market not doing well. People becoming unemployed or underemployed. They're not going to go to these stores. And Lowe's is a home improvement store, just like Home Depot. They're not going to go there to remodel their house, to buy new fixtures. The construction crews who are building homes are not showing up, buying the nails, the lumber. The handyman's not going there. So we can see right now from everything that we've been looking at, and if we go back in time, back to at least August of 2013, we saw major corporations in their departments, the mortgage departments, we saw them laying off tens of thousands of people all throughout the year of 2013 moving into 2014, and they're still laying off. And we see a lot of the smaller mortgage companies laying off people and actually closing down, because what's happening is the American person does not have the ability to go out and purchase a home. We have to remember a lot of the people lost their wealth. About 38% of the people lost their wealth. There were billions and billions of foreclosures and short sales, and this hurts their credit. A lot of people got laid off from well-paying jobs, couldn't find the same job, or did find the same job, but got paid less. And now we see unemployment is skyrocketing. I know the U.S., the BLS numbers are out there telling us it's 6.1 or 6.2, but we know it is much, much closer to 30%. There is an executive on Wall Street who's saying it's much closer to 37%, and we know the youth employment is at least 50% right now, and that is the foundation of the next generation, and it is not working out, because there was a report out there saying about 80% of the college students today cannot find work in their majors, and they're just taking part-time jobs. And we can see this is why the government has been modifying their student loans, because they realize these kids are not getting jobs. They're living with their parents, living in their same bedroom from when they went to high school into college, and they still have to stay there because they don't make enough to go out on their own. And I do have my wife's cousin who graduated from Binghamton. He's living with his parents. He cannot get out of his house because the job that he found is making $14 an hour, 20 hours a week. And the only reason he found this job is because his parents knew somebody. So they were able to connect someone. But a lot of his other college buddies, they can't find work. They're continually sending out resumes, and there is nothing. Now we see that the United States and the EU have continually placing sanctions on Russia, and we see now Russian oligarchs are saying, you know what, we're done with this, and we're not using the Visa, MasterCard. We want to completely detach ourselves from the Western world. So a lot of the rich Russians are starting to dump their Visa and MasterCards, and they're moving everything to the China's Union Pay credit card system. And they're saying now, none of these sanctions can reach us, they don't affect us, and we're going to see more and more of these rich oligarchs switch over. And it's not only going to be in Russia. We're going to see a lot of the BRIC nations say, you know what, we don't need Visa and MasterCard anymore. Let's start and go with the new credit card system. Russia is developing it. We'll go with China right now, or any other country that has a system, and we will use that to protect ourselves. Now, it looks like there is another gun confiscation bill introduced into the Senate. The new gun confiscation bill introduced in the Senate on Tuesday claims to be aimed at removing guns from domestic abusers. Now, they're trying all different angles to go after the guns. And again, like I said, the Constitution, Bill of Rights, this is the law of the land. Nothing can be above it. All they can do is create thousands and thousands of laws to try to limit the rights of the people, but it cannot be done. And they continually try. There are thousands upon thousands of laws, and they continually try to do this because they want to limit it as much as they possibly can. And right now, what they're saying is that the bill termed the Domestic Violence Gun Homicide Prevention Act of 2014, the legislation would institute a fund of series of grants administered by the Director of the Office of Community Policing Services of the Department of Justice. These grants would be distributed to states who have domestic violence gun prohibitions and enforce regulations that include the seizure of firearms in cases of domestic abuse. The announcement of the legislation comes just days before a scheduled appearance on Capitol Hill by a group of domestic violence survivors and gun control advocates from Michael Bloomberg's Everytown for Gun Safety. So this is a complete setup. They're doing this right perfectly at the time they're going to testify. They introduce this bill, and they do this every single time to try to motivate everyone into passing these bills. Now, they put out an advertisement showing a woman and their child in their house, and this crazed man, ex-husband, comes to the door, starts, banging on the door, and she doesn't have enough time to call 911 because she knows the police will not get here in the amount of time needed. So the man breaks in with his gun, and that's it. Well, we have to look at this. First of all, this advertisement shows us that the police aren't going to be there to protect you. Let's replace this man's gun with a bat. Is she any better off? No. He could hit her and hit the kid. Let's replace the bat with a knife. We have the same situation. Well, let's say if she had a weapon to protect herself and her child, the bat, the knife, the gun wouldn't make a difference, would it? And if she was properly trained, that ex-husband wouldn't even be coming around. Now, the point of all of this is really to take the guns away from the American people. This has nothing to do with anything, and I can't even wait to see the statistics they have on this. I haven't had time to look it up, but how many ex-husbands do come to the house with a gun to try to do something to their wife and their child? And of course, this is an advertisement. I know this goes on throughout the country, but again, what are the statistics? Is this really happening, or is this just ginned up, being played out to create another law to try to get everyone's guns? And this is exactly what is going on right now. Now, it looks like the United States is continually provoking China. And here we are with Japan. We know they're fighting over the Senkaku Islands. Japan has given names to a cluster of 5 uninhabited islands in the East China Sea. Gee, you see any provocation there? Well, I do. There are also claims that they just went in and they started naming all these islands, saying, yes, they're part of Japan. And of course, China is out there protesting this, saying this is absolutely illegal and invalid, and accused Japan of undermining China's territorial sovereignty. And of course, this is being done to provoke China. The whole purpose is to try to get these countries all riled up with sanctions, with provocations, and they understand they're containing China in Central Africa. And this is going to continue, and it's going to escalate as time goes on. This is not going to end. Now, it looks like the SCO is going to admit new members. This is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This kind of rivals NATO right now. And what the SCO summit will give the green light for admitting 4 observer states, India, Pakistan, Iran, and Mongolia, to the 6-member organization. At present, the SCO has started to counterbalance NATO's role in Asia. Consequently, these countries want to take part in the SCO in the capacity of safeguard of their interest. At present, the SCO is strengthening because the American policy towards Asia has been excessively tough and is aimed at suppressing their interests. Well, we can see what's happening here. We have NATO. Pretty soon we're going to have a lot more members in SCO. They'll both be building up, and there'll be a string of all the BRIC nations coming together to be with the SCO, and they will be against NATO. All this is being created And it's all being done now for World War III. China, Russia, the BRIC nations, they realize what's going on. They understand what the central bankers are trying to do. They're trying to provoke. They're trying to impose sanctions. They're doing everything they possibly can to start this war. And if they cannot provoke or make one of these nations do something, they will do it on their own and make it look like the other nation caused the war to start. Now, the European Union has quietly agreed to lift restrictions supplying Kiev with military technology and equipment, which can be used for the repression of the southeastern section of the country. And this was done on purpose because we know Kiev needs more military assets. They need more funds. And the Pentagon right now is doing exactly that because we understand they're raising taxes in Ukraine. The government is collapsing. But don't worry. The Pentagon is going to ask Congress to allocate about $19 million in support of the Ukrainian army. The United States intends to provide $19 million to bolster Ukraine's military operation, which pro-Kiev authorities conduct against militias in the southeastern region. Kirby also said that Russia was building up its military presence near the border of its neighboring Ukraine. And he said it's difficult to pin it down to a specific number, but believe me, we know they're doing it. That means they have absolutely no evidence whatsoever. There is no number. The international team came in, inspected the entire border to see if there was any Russian troop buildup, and they saw that there was absolutely none whatsoever. The UN came out, and they said, guess what? There is absolutely no evidence that Russia is providing weapons to the southeastern people. We had the NBC crew drive up and down the border of Russia, and they've seen no Russian buildup. We've had the Open Skies Treaty where Germany, U.S., Ukraine flew over Russia, and they saw no troop buildup. But the United States government officials, of course, are using this to explain away why they can give $19 million or a couple of billion to Ukraine. And we see this continually going on, and this money actually could be used inside the United States to help all those people who do not have jobs. It could help our veterans, place them in homes. I mean, I can see a better use of this money than going towards the puppet regime in Ukraine fighting the people inside Ukraine. And of course they're calling them terrorists, which they are just people who don't want to go along with the puppet regime. Now, Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko has blasted the country's parliament as the fifth column, which cannot recognize the Lugansk Donetsk People's Republic as terrorist group. They want to designate these people as terrorist group because this way the U.S. can come in and say, we have another terrorist group. But you know what? The parliament will not do this. And the fifth column, what this term is, it originated from the Spanish Civil War, where Franco's fascists literally sent a fifth column of spies and provocateurs to try to capture Madrid from inside the city. Nowadays, the term has come to be used widely to refer to any group of people who undermine a larger group, such as a nation or a besieged city, from within. And we can see right now they are trying to designate these people as terrorists, so the United States and other private Western central bank countries can come in and say, okay, we need to battle the terrorist group, and we can see this is exactly what they're trying to do. Now, Obama was out there, and it's very interesting in what he said. He was out there giving a speech, and the president says the United States is short of going to war with Russia over Ukraine, as he described his Russian counterpart as someone who does not always act rationally, and he was talking about Putin. Right now, what we've done is impose sufficient costs on Russia that, objectively speaking, they should. President Putin should want to resolve this diplomatically. Get these sanctions lifted, get their economy growing again, and have good relations with Ukraine, Obama told the surprise news conference on Friday. But sometimes people don't always act rationally, and they don't always act based on their medium or long-term interest. That can't deter us, though. We just have to stay at it, and we are just short of going to war. Now, think about what he's saying here. He is willing to go to war. He's telling everyone, we're going to go to war here. I mean, we're placing sanctions on Russia. They're not backing off because there's nothing to back off from. And they're continually doing this. What he's actually saying, he wants Russia, China, to stop de-dollarizing, to stop the BRIC nations, to stop all of this. At the same time, he wants to demonize Russia because they know in the end, when the dollar is completely collapsing, they need certain nations to say, ah, they did it. They're the ones who started the war. They're the ones who launched the digital time bomb inside the financial markets, brought down the power supply, the power infrastructure inside the United States. They need to do this, and this is why they're using these type of words about war, about we're doing everything we can, and you can see they're definitely building up towards this. Now, it looks like the people in Gaza were having a peaceful rally, and they all got together, and there is a video on the site if you'd like to take a look at this. And it looks like the IDF, Israel, decided to fire upon the Palestinians inside the peaceful protest they were having. A lot of people were injured. About 90 people were injured. It looks like other people were killed. They were using rubber bullets and live ammo at the same time. And of course, what's happening here is Israel is continually bombarding Gaza. They haven't stopped. Of course, they said there was a ceasefire. 9 minutes later, they blew up some tunnels. They started firing again at Hamas. And of course, the corporate media always reverses it and says Hamas is the one who's doing it. And of course, the ceasefire agreements and the peace agreements is an ultimatum. And this is very interesting. My son was watching Star Wars, and there was a very interesting line in there. And this is coming from Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't know if everyone has seen the Star Wars films. But he says the Siths see things in black and white, where if you don't do it this way, that is it. And this is very interesting when I look at our leaders, and they continually give ultimatums. They only see it in black and white. They don't see anything else. They don't look for peace. It just reminded me of the Star Wars film and how the Sith think, and they only think in one way. Do it this way, or don't do it at all, and I will kill you. And it's very interesting how it really fits into our society to today from what these films are saying. Okay. Now, it looks like New York, this morning, New York City Department of Health conducted a large-scale medical emergency preparedness drill simulating a massive public health emergency, causing many to wonder if they are preparing for Ebola in America. New York City Health Department gave little notice to participants, with most city agencies completely unaware of the drill until it started this morning at 6:30. The drill included about 1,500 New Yorker city workers from more than a dozen agencies, including the New York Police Department and the New York Fire Department. Now, it's very interesting because we're all talking about the Ebola outbreak. This could cause martial law, and we always know when they have drills, it's normally a setup, and usually we have an incident occur. Now, I have to hand it to Dabu 7. He came up and he found that the United States was behind a patent for human Ebola virus species and compositions and methods thereof, and this patent was filed in October of 2009, and I saw Dabu 7. He saw that the United States was on this patent, but what's very interesting about this is that at the same time in 2009, once the patent was filed, researchers received a 5-year, $7 million grant from the National Institute of Health. And this went to the Tulane University researchers that were doing experiments in the U.S. biowarfare research community down in Sierra Leone. Now, all this fits together, and it looks like they must have been creating some type of strain of Ebola, which is man-made, and it looks like they were trying to figure out a cure for it, because this also reminds me of the movie V for Vendetta, where the government created a manufactured disease, they put it upon the people, They let it go. People died. There was riots. Just havoc, and they experimented on certain people to find the cure. And then all of a sudden, the government came out and said we had the cure, and the government kept on pushing the message: you need the government, you need the government. And it seems like this is exactly what is going on right now. Now the question is, what were they doing down in Africa? What were they doing? They were doing some type of tests in Sierra Leone, and the government of Sierra Leone told the researchers to stop their testing. Now, why did they ask them to stop their testing? The research program occurred in Sierra Leone, the Republic of Guinea, and Liberia, said to be the epicenter of the 2014 Ebola outbreak. Has the announced purpose, among others, of detecting the future use of fever viruses and bioweapons. These researchers are working with other institutions, one of which is the USA MRID, the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases, and also a well-known center for biowarfare research located at the Fort Detrick, Maryland. And all of this is happening at the same time. So we have the patent that was issued in 2009. Then we had a grant of $7 million issued from the National Institute of Health. We had Tulane and other organizations down in this area doing experiments and diagnostic tests on humans, trying to figure out some type of cure. So we can see this could be a man-made version of Ebola, and I see a lot of doctors out there now saying that yes, Ebola is man-made, and they were trying to have or create a cure, because anytime you release something, or the government releases something to create a false flag, they need to have the cure handy and ready to go. They have to let it do its work. They have to declare martial law, and all of a sudden the government swoops down and saves the people. And what we're seeing right now, and this is coming out of Reuters, is that the U.S. government is seeking to test Ebola vaccine on humans now. They're saying they have some type of experimental Ebola vaccine, and it should be ready by September, and they would like to start testing on people. Again, we don't know what's inside these vaccines. We don't know the after effect of the vaccine, and I'm sure they want a lot of people online taking these vaccines, almost like when we saw the swine flu, when they had people going for those inhalers and all those other things, or the flu vaccine, or the flu shot, which really doesn't do much in my opinion, but they had people long lines trying to get it. And we can see right now that all of this is being ginned up to convince everyone, and we should see, as time goes on, more scare tactics. It's a pandemic. We have thousands of people infected in the U.S., and if we start seeing those type of stories, then we know this thing is starting to roll, they have traction, and they're going to move it forward. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.